So I'm going to really make your day, Dr. Energy.
Okay, I like having it's like Clint Eastwood. Go ahead, make my day. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and good night. Joe, Dr. Energy Piazza.
Rara is in the house. Catherine Asaro Myers.
Welcome back to BU Network Podcast, Conversations Worth Having.
So I'm going to really make your day, Dr. Energy.
Okay, I like having it's like Clint Eastwood. Go ahead, make my day.
I'm going to go first. I want to talk about our BU moments. I want to make it a real moment. Let's paint the picture of reality for our audience and for each other, because I don't know what your reality is at the moment. So let me see if I can take my paintbrush out and give you the visual and the emotion and the feeling of what's going on right now in my BU moment.
Okay.
I am standing in my bridge room.
Mm-hmm.
I actually see grass on some little snow, which is amazing that at this time of year, because when this gets actually released, it will be a different time of year.
Mm-hmm.
But to know that at this moment, I'm looking at grass and snow. So that's kind of cool, no pun intended. I am with my fantastic 10-pound dumbbell. Now,
Nice.
I want to paint this image to you. I'm wearing a wireless headset, which means I can actually pick up the dumbbell and not knock anything over en route to it. Because technology has advanced. So,
Nice.
me and my best friend 10-pound dumbbell. Now, here's the other dose of reality of what I've been dealing with. I'm going to get really cozy with that 10-pound dumbbell because I have recently embraced and embodied all that life has given me within my 5'4.25" body. I think the other day I told someone I was 4'11". That's so funny. I just thought about that. And I am going to hard body sculpt with this 10-pound dumbbell and all of its cousins, some superwoman body. So my reality is I am hitting it hard so that I could create this amazing body of strength. And in BU, I'm going to have the new me.
Cool. Get to see a new you.
Yeah.
For a new year, a new decade.
Exactly. I'm happy for that.
I'm just taking it nice and easy. I have my cup of coffee here with me. So if you could imagine nice, freshly ground beans. And now, I've had the water poured over and this beautiful smell of coffee here in my studio. And I'm looking at the window, beautiful sunshine today. We had some snowfall the last couple of days here in our nation's capital here in Ottawa and in the beginning of January. And I'm just really having a moment of gratitude for being here and being here with you and with our audience. There's just something different today, a different feeling I have, and I can't really put my finger on exactly what it is, but I'm just really enjoying being here in the moment. And of course, I can't wait to be on with our guest Rebecca as well. This is going to be. I'm really excited about this one. I think this is going to be really good. Even when we're facing adversity, it's who are we being? Are you being you in the moment? And what does that mean? And what perspective or mindset do you bring to everything you do? Because really, we all face the same situations in life, and somebody's going to see, the optimist is going to see it one way, the quote unquote realist is going to see it another way, and the pessimist is going to see it yet a third way. And so, how do you see the events of your life? Because how you see the events of your life is how you're going to move through them. And if you want to move through the events of your life, all of the events of your life with grace and ease, then you need to cultivate grace and ease in your life. If you're going to see the world and the events of your life as tough and challenging and confrontational, then you're going to respond in that way, and life is going to be confrontational. So I invite you, dear listener, to become aware of how you perceive the events of your life and how you respond to them, because how you perceive them is how you create your life.
That's wonderful. That's excellent. And think about those around you as you're listening to people. Who are they? And who are you surrounding yourself with? An egg, a carrot, or a coffee bean?
It's really important to know who the people around you are. You know, just like we are very careful, you and I, because we've had this discussion before about the food that we eat and how that influences us. Remember that also the people we talk to, the information that we take in on a daily basis is like the food for our brain and our soul. So what are you feeding your brain? What are you creating in your life?
Excellent. Food for thought. No pun intended.
No, I think the pun was totally intended.
With that amazing moment, we can now walk right into our podcast with Rebecca Frost Cuevas.
Yes, I can't wait to hear some more stories from this author and educator. So we'll see you on the other side.
All right, let's go. This is an exciting day. I'm so happy that we can be together worldwide, internationally, but with people that are so close to us, regardless of the geographic location. I'm holding 2 books, but I'm really holding a friendship. That's what we have, Dr. Energy. We have a friendship here with us today. And we think about that when we have our guests. When we speak with them, we get to know them, and all of our guests are awesome. There's something about Rebecca. I'd like to introduce Rebecca today. And I know that the show is not 2 hours, but I would take an hour just to introduce her. So I'll do my best to condense all of the amazing things that Rebecca has to offer to everyone that will get to know her. So first, Rebecca Frost Cuevas is the founder and CEO of Learn and Get Smarter, Inc. What a great name. She's a leading online learning education consultant and trainer for experts and entrepreneurs. Rebecca holds a bachelor degree in English from Harvard University, as well as 2 master's degrees in education. Her first master's from Wheelock College Graduate School is in curriculum design and development. Her second is from California State University, San Bernardino. It's in instructional technology. For 15 years, Rebecca designed and delivered award-winning education programs for public utilities in Southern California, impacting over 150,000 students with hands-on learning experiences relating to water and energy conservation. Her proprietary research-based course, Design Formula, helps experts and entrepreneurs create effective and engaging online courses that really deliver the transformations they promise. When Rebecca is not designing online courses, she enjoys making up stories about Mother Rebecca. That's another awesome chapter, no pun intended. A 200-year-old fictional Victorian know-it-all. I so relate to this book, who provides gracious solutions to life's perplexing problems. We have Rebecca Frost Cuevas with us today. Hi, Rebecca.
Hi, Catherine. Hi, Dr. Energy. It's such a delight and such an honor to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
Yeah, absolutely. It's exciting.
We both want to talk to you. It's like, you ever feel like that? Like you're like the best flavor at Ben and Jerry's.
Yeah. Ben and Jerry's even better, yeah.
Oh my gosh, I've been compared to Ben and Jerry's. I could die now.
You definitely made it when you get
made it. Thank you.
You're the new flavor, Rebecca at Ben and Jerry's. Okay, I want some.
I love it.
Actually, Mother Rebecca, that sounds like that could be a good, interesting flavor for
sort of a cinnamon, vanilla, comfort flavor with a little traditional, a hint of lavender, perhaps.
There you go.
And sprinkled on top a little Harvard.
No, a little love.
Tell us a little bit about your Harvard University days, Rebecca.
Well, it's interesting. I originally entered with sophomore standing because I had taken 3 advanced placement exams,
Mm-hmm.
and I was studying something very specialized, language related. And what I came to realize was that, and this is such a good realization to have, a humbling realization to have when you're 18 years old, was that I just didn't know all that, and I really wasn't ready to be a sophomore, in what should have been my freshman year. And so what I did was I let go of the sophomore standing. I went
Mm-hmm.
back to being a freshman, one of the smartest decisions I ever made. Don't get ahead of yourself,
Mm-hmm.
And I also decided to major in English to get a more general education, which again, I'm very glad I did. And many years later, 30 years later,
Mm-hmm.
I went back to community college locally where I live and did the language that I had originally been working on. So I did get that. But I think, at an earlier point in life, unless you're really sure, like, exactly what you want to do, it's good to get an education that allows you to think broadly about a lot of different topics. And
Yeah, for sure.
that's stood me in good stead. So I'm very thankful that I was able to do that. And and more than that, I think, and this is something that I've taught, young people that I work with, it's so important to sort of monitor your own learning process
Right.
and adapt and adjust as you go along. But Harvard, of course, has world-class resources, on
Yeah, for
any
sure.
topic. So I'm very thankful for my education there.
And Rebecca, when you were, see if you can take us down a little bit of a trip down that time in your life. When you were there in Harvard going through school, did you know what you wanted to do? I know we just touched on it, but I wanted to get into your mindset at that time being a Harvard student.
Well, what's so interesting, and again, it applies to my generation, but even more so to people today. So many of us end up in careers that didn't exist when we were in school. So, I went to Harvard in the 1970s, and I'm going to tell you something really amazing in a minute, but there was no web. So I knew I wanted to teach, but I never could have imagined that I would teach online. I did know that I wanted to reach a global audience and I wanted to publish books. And I remember, people saying, well, it's really hard to publish a book. How do you think you're going to do that? And I just remember thinking, I'm not worried. It's going to work out. But the thing that's amazing that I'll share with you, and I think you're going to love this and understand it. So all the way back then in the 1970s, I was envisioning this kind of literary work that I would create, and it had stained glass windows, and it had weavings, and it had mosaics. And I was like, sometime around, 2000, I said, wait, windows and a web is like, I was talking about the internet, but I was imagining it in, terms of what we had then that I could relate to. So, I feel that the ability to connect as we are today, at a distance with anyone all over the world, that didn't exist then in the way it does now.
Right.
But I had sort of a feeling about it, but I couldn't have explained exactly how it was going to work.
Right. Yeah, back then you had to actually pick up a phone and call somebody.
Yeah, and if you wanted to do research, you had to physically go to the library,
and card stack and all that stuff.
Which, that was one of the things that was such a blessing about being at a university like Harvard, is they had all these amazing libraries. Yeah. But so thankful for all the information we have at our fingertips today.
Yeah, for sure.
And Rebecca, how did you get guidance to curriculum design and development?
Well, I started out, of course, so sort of trip down memory lane. So I graduated from college with my degree in English and immediately discovered that I was completely unemployable. So, I went to the career office, and by the grace really of God, a wonderful person from Wheelock College Graduate School, which is now part of Boston University. It's a wonderful school that specializes in education. And one of their representatives had been to the career office the day before. So when I kind of explained, my general skill set and interests, the advisor said, maybe this would be a good fit for you. So that was the perfect suggestion. So I started at Wheelock part-time, and I had a job that had been vacated by some other Wheelock students who had just graduated. My part-time job was packing chocolates off a moving belt. at a candy factory at Bailey's of Boston in downtown Boston. So that was my job, and I took two courses part-time, and then went full-time, at the next semester. And so the emphasis there was on early childhood education and teaching. But because of partly my interests and partly the way the school program was focused, I knew that I wanted to create my own curriculum. In other words, I don't like teaching things that other people have put together, because I kind of need to be in control of the learning process, all the way from the overshadowing wisdom of what's above it, all the way to delivering it to the student. So that's what I love to do.
Rebecca, so sorry. I just have to interject, Joe. I know I interrupted you for a second. When you were talking about the chocolate on the I know that you know what I'm going to say.
Yeah, I know where you're going.
I love Lucy.
I love Lucy and Ethel,
with Ethel. And when she couldn't keep up, they started to eat the chocolate. They started to put the chocolate in the pocket, and they started to put the chocolate in their blouses.
One of the all-time classics.
That image stayed with me. And when you're just talking about a conveyor with chocolate, it's funny. What great marketing was that? A conveyor with chocolate. I think of Lucille Ball, I Love Lucy show, and that moment. It was like 30 seconds, right? It stayed in my mind for, oh my gosh, like I must have seen that show when I was 10.
Right.
So it's over.
The funny thing is, people did tell me about the show. I actually never saw that till many years later. But but that did happen to me once, is that the belt was in another room. The belt started in the other room. This was a very traditional candy kitchen. It was magical, with the giant copper kettles. It's actually a wonderful metaphor for curriculum development, because it's like, how do you create something from scratch, and get it to the point that it's ready to be delivered? So one day the belt started, and for some reason I wasn't notified. And so that did happen to me. The other thing is just standing on the subway platform, going home for my first day of work, and I just felt like I reeked of chocolate from every pore. So
how sweet is that? No pun intended.
It was a great job. I loved it. And there were these older, very experienced older women who were hand dippers. So, I was packing chocolates that were, mechanically covered in chocolate, but they were hand dippers. So they took the centers and, made those fancy swirls that are proprietary to each different type of chocolate and each company.
Right.
And they had all sorts of salty tails for, it was just the ideal job for, starting out in the world. I loved it.
Rebecca, you have so many fun stories within your skill set, and I'm reading to reinform myself about what you like to do when you're not designing courses. And when I'm looking at you enjoy making up stories, so I kind of get the feeling that there's a hidden story, or that there's something funny behind that. We didn't discuss it, but can you tell me if I'm picking up on that you enjoy making up stories about Mother Rebecca?
Well, yes. Mother Rebecca, the way I describe the story of Mother Rebecca is that I wanted to write a book about, both for myself and for my readers, how do we extract the wisdom from our life experience? I think of everything as a learning experience, and our time on earth is like our classroom for our soul to grow.
Right.
So what can we learn from that? So I wanted to do it in a way that, was not totally personal, just about me and my life, but was more universal. So what I did was I created a character and wrote her life story. And the way I say it is, I kept the truth, but I removed all the facts.
Don't let the truth get in the way of a good story.
Well, don't let the facts in this case get, though. The facts, because I really wanted to focus on make something that would be a bit more universal,
right? And
that many people could relate to, and that was informed by, obviously you can only at some level write from what you know,
right?
If you haven't had any experience relating to something, you couldn't really write about it effectively. But how could I sort of generalize from specific life experiences to make them more universal? That was my goal with the book.
And having, reading it and reading the stories, you can really feel that come through in your stories. And with Mother Rebecca, that it's things that you've gone through in your life. And I think that's what really connects with readers, is when we can speak from things that have happened in our own life.
Exactly. And how can we extract the wisdom? You know, I always say, you know, we're all like the hero of our own story, right? And we can choose to be the victim, the survivor, or the hero. And my goal as a teacher is to help everyone to become the hero of their own story. So I kind of wanted to share, you know, ways that Mother Rebecca had, you know, been through some various, you know, trials and tribulations, and how she had navigated that.
Rebecca, there's something I feel when I'm looking at page 25 and I see this image. And I also feel I can see, do you know what those cameos, do you remember when they were really popular? Oh my gosh, I have a collection of them. They're carved out of ivory. I feel I'm looking at a piece of jewelry, a cameo. And I love here, we haven't mentioned this, but I love here when you talk about actual Rebecca's father was a man of such goodness and wisdom. Can you tell us a little bit about Rebecca's father?
Well, okay, those are two separate things. So first of all, the cameo on page 25 is my actual great, I think I may be missing a generation or two, grandmother. That is an actual family portrait.
Wow.
And so I'm just so honored and to have her in the book, and I feel kind of supported by my ancestors. My father was a saint, may he rest in peace, just an incredible person. I just feel so blessed to have had him as my father and my teacher. And maybe you could give me a little direction, because I can start raving and go off in all directions.
No, that's okay. I was thinking of that, first of all, that image to honor your great grandmother. It really reminded me of a cameo, an ivory cameo, the piece of jewelry that we've all been passed down. And I remember choosing as a young girl. I actually am going to start wearing them now that I'm looking at this picture, and the actual cameo jewelry. And then just thinking about, in speaking about Mother Rebecca, I wanted to honor Rebecca's father. So I thought it would be a nice time to talk about, of course, Mother Rebecca and relatives, and how you honor actual Rebecca's father, who's a man of such goodness and wisdom that some have thought he was among a special group of souls who walked the earth.
Thank you. I'm so honored that, well, first of all, I feel that my father would be very honored that we're, you know, sharing about him today. He was a very modest and humble person. He always said that his goal was to be the maitre d'. And I feel like what he meant was that he wanted to create a gracious experience for others to enjoy. And he was actually a very distinguished person. He was a diplomat. He was an attorney, and but mainly I feel he was a teacher and a mentor. He was, even to the very last days of his life, he was on the phone every day, calling all the cousins and family members to see how they were doing. You know, he was like the wise leader of a tribe of souls, you know, that he wanted to make sure that everybody was optimized and was taken care of, and just such a gracious and kind man. And he taught my dad has 4 children, and I'm the oldest, and he taught all of us how to be good public speakers. So, and actually he knew that, you know, his time was limited at the end because he had an illness. So I actually wrote the remarks that I was going to share at his funeral, and I read them to him. And that meant so much to me that I actually got to, you know, share those with him, and he knew what I was going to say. Wow. And what's really interesting is that occasionally he was such a great communicator in life, and I find that he still finds ways to communicate, you know, from the beyond. It's like a thought will pop into my head. And one time the thought popped into my head to go read that speech. And I was kind of having, I was having an argument with myself. I was like, why should I read it? I already wrote it. I delivered it. No, go read it. So when I read it, I realized that I had said at the end that I could hear my dad singing, you know, happy birthday to me in my heart. And I realized it was almost my birthday, and he was actually telling me happy birthday. And one other story about my dad and birthdays, and there was actually an article written about him by Ann Landers, because he took singing lessons. And he used to walk around the streets of Manhattan looking for people who looked like they were downtrodden or sad, and he would go up to them and start singing. And so one day he was on the bus, and a lady got on, and she was visiting New York from out of town, and the only seat was next to, she described as an elderly gentleman. I didn't like my dad being described that way, because I think of him as very young and vibrant, but he was in fact in his 80s or 70s. And she went and sat down next to him, and she was crying. And so my dad started, asking her, what's the matter? And she said, oh, it's my birthday and I'm from out of town and nobody knows. So he started singing Happy Birthday to You. And the entire bus, which was filled with musicians from Lincoln Center who were on the way home, started singing Happy Birthday. And then they went on to rousing renditions of several other songs. And by the time she got off, she was feeling wonderful. And so then she wrote this to Ann Landers. And I'm sitting here in California, my family's from New York, and I'm sitting here in California reading this, and I'm like, that's my dad. No one else would do that. So I told my brother about it, and he told my dad. My dad didn't remember the incident, but then my brother remembered that my dad had come home one day and described this incident. Right. So, that's just the kind of thing he did on a daily basis. Right. So I'm so honored to remember. That's amazing.
There's just people, I'm not going to say there's not people like that in the world today. It's not, you just don't hear about it as much. It's not celebrated as much as it should be.
Just being a very kind person and someone who genuinely cares more about others than they do about themselves. That is such a legacy that my dad, I hope that I could honor like a fraction of what he taught me, that. And he always wanted me to write and teach. So
there you go.
I think we just did continue to honor that.
Thank you. Thank you for that.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for bringing
that's amazing.
that forth to us to have those memories live on. And Rebecca, I just wanted to ask you about, I'm going to reference the page so you know where I'm coming with this, because I marked it, that the true Rebecca, the actual Rebecca, she studied and taught a course in Raja Yoga, which is yoga for the mind. The course teaches that we are not bodies that have souls, but rather we are souls that have bodies.
Yes.
Can
you talk to us a little bit about that?
Well, I do think that, our lives are arranged to help us optimize our learning. And I was just incredibly fortunate to be basically dragged kicking and screaming to California, which I've now lived in for longer than any other place and love California. But I'm from Manhattan and didn't really have, a lot of experience with the West and never imagined living there. So I was, life brought me here to California. And one of the first things I discovered was this wonderful course called The Nature of the Soul, which is a teaching of Raja Yoga. And so I was very fortunate at a young age. And I already had my first master's in education and some teaching experience, but I didn't have, the bulk of the experience I would later go on to get. So I was, given this blessing to learn this way of basically teaching and meditation, teaching from the higher alignment, teaching from a soul focus. And so that is always my focus, when I teach. And one of the things that we learned in that course is that you as the teacher are always a student in your own class, because real teaching does come from the soul level. And so we as personalities, who are really just a fraction of our true essence, we learn ourselves from whatever we teach. And, they always say that, if you really want to learn something, teach it to someone else.
Right.
So yes. I'm very thankful for having a disciplined, structured, introduction to like sort of really a high level of soul focused teaching.
And thank you for sharing that. I felt that had a very deep meaning, and I wanted to bring that forth in our podcast today. And I would like to switch topics, but it's all about you, Rebecca. I'm holding, and I want to tell you how much I appreciate the font size.
Yes.
This is number 1 for me. I did not have to grab my glasses. So How to Teach Anything to Anyone Online Course Design Formula. I'm referencing page 103. I must like the 100s. I love here that you talk about get clear on the transformation your course delivers. So can you tell us a little bit about, and if that's not what you want to talk about, by all means, tell us that. But I love that you talk about get clear on the transformation. So as the educator, can you tell us how you do that?
Okay, well, first of all, I think that's the most important question to ask when you're setting out to teach something. And it does tie in to your previous, observation about this, soul-centered teaching. I mean, teaching is really about moving our consciousness forward, bringing more light into our sphere of awareness. So we're moving from one point on a line or on a spectrum to a more advanced point when we really learn something. And so as a teacher, so many people, it's wonderful that anyone can create an online course. I just think that's a great development. But people don't always realize that when you do that, you're not just sharing information if you want your course to be effective. A true course that actually, if you think about the word course, it's like the word means kind of moving from one point to another, like a race course or, so you're creating like a pathway for people to move from their point A, where they are at now, to their point B. And point B is the transformation, the learning goal of the course. So if you start from that, you start with the end in mind, as Stephen R. Covey says, or you think of a process of what's called backwards design, where you again, start from the goal and work backwards so that you're sure to achieve the goal. That's going to create a highly effective course. But many people don't realize they need to do that as the first step. So that's why I started there. So did I answer your question or?
Yes, you did. Absolutely. Yeah. How do you get clear? I mean, I'm sure that's another show all onto itself.
How do you get clear? Well, I've created a lot of, that's a great question, because many experts, and again, I think it's wonderful that people are excited to share, everything they know, because that's great. And we want to come from that place of, giving and excitement and, enthusiasm. But the trouble is, the analogy I use in various places in the book and in some of my online materials is no one can eat a whole cow. And basically that's the whole cow. And I apologize to any vegan listeners. I don't even eat beef. So you could say no one can eat a whole field of soybeans. You need a square of tofu. In other words, experts, we want to share everything that we know.
Right.
And we certainly can, but we can't do it all at once if we want people to be able to absorb it and digest it. So I have actually got a free mini course called Don't Serve a Whole Cow. And in it, I help people think about and reflect on sort of the whole body of what they want to share, which is what I mean by the whole cow.
Right.
And then think about how they could divide it up into different types of online learning products. And it's helpful. A lot of the research behind my book is based on, how people learn different types of material best.
Right.
And Robert M. Gagne divided learning up into what he called 5 different domains. So I use those domains as a kind of a way to provide some guidance and some structure for dividing up your body of expertise. So that would be, do you have some how-to courses that you would like to teach? Or do you have some mindset change courses? Or, there's 5 different domains. But I find that first step really helps people get a sense of, okay, here's everything I could teach. And then I take them on a structured journey to narrow it down to, okay, out of all of those things, what's the first thing that you want to start creating a course about that is perhaps foundational to everything else your audience needs to know, or that you're having a lot of demand for right now. There's, various reasons why people would pick one topic to start with, but I find that having a place to store the rest of the information sort of takes the pressure off from having to say, everything all in one course, which gets overwhelming.
Thank you.
That's
awesome.
Is
clear. That's clear.
Yeah.
Dr. Energy.
Yeah. So I've been reading through the book, and what's really struck me was something you said early on in the book around who the book is for. And you kind of touched on it there in that last answer, but if you talk to us a little bit more about who this book, the Course Design Formula, or in fact the online course, because I believe you have an online course of Course Design Formula coming up. Who's that for, and why would they want to use it or take that course?
Well, in theory, it's for anyone who wants to create an online course.
Right.
But what they teach us in, the online course design world is you want to actually speak directly to a very specific group of people who are the ones that will benefit the most from what you're offering. And I find that for me, the people that benefit the most are those that are really passionate about not just creating a course to make money or to, I mean, we all want to make money, but that's not their main, that's not what drives them.
Right.
My target audience is driven by a passion to create transformation for their target audience. They want to make a difference with their online course.
Right.
And they want to make sure their course is really effective at, expressing whatever their central purpose is for being here on this planet. They're experts, they're creative thinkers, they're entrepreneurs. Many of them are what I call I didn't come up with this term, but category kings and category queens. Right. And that's from a book called Play Bigger, where they talk about, it has multiple authors, but they talk about people who are creating a whole new category of thing that has never been seen before.
Right.
And I find that many of the people that are attracted to the Course Design Formula are that kind of, innovators. They're trying to bring something through that is new, and they want to do it in a way that's really excellent and that makes a really deep impact. So I'm so honored to have the students that I have. I love them. Shout out to all my students. Love you guys. They are amazing. They're so dedicated to making a difference. So I'd say if I had to sum it up in one word, it's creative experts and entrepreneurs who are dedicated to making a difference with their online course.
That's awesome.
Thank you.
I can't wait to apply the principles in the book in the course to what Catherine and I are doing with BU Network as well. So I'm just a little plug for ourselves in there, but I'm really excited. Yeah.
I'd love to have you in the course. Come join us. It would be such an honor.
That's good timing, and it's a perfect time for us to segue into the BU moment. And the BU moment will be a very short segment before we wrap up. And I'd like us to think about our takeaway from today. So, Dr. Energy, I'll ask Rebecca first, and then we'll give like a 30-second synopsis. Sure. Rebecca, what is your BU final moment, your takeaway from today's show?
Well, I came up with my 3 words for 2020, and they were prosperity, service, and joy. And I would say that my takeaway from today's show is joy, because you both asked such amazing questions that just, you just zeroed right in on the most important things about everything. And you made me feel that it's okay to be me. That whatever we bring, and most of the people I work with are very unusual people, and I didn't know I was an unusual person. People have been kind of telling me that, so I'm like, okay, I guess so. But when you are sort of an innovator or different, or not sort of an innovator, really an innovator, it can sometimes you feel like the ugly duckling, you just don't fit in, and realizing you both made me feel not like an ugly duckling, but like a beautiful swan. And because that we should celebrate our uniqueness, we should celebrate what we bring to the planet, because no one else can be you. So, I want to share, I say that I think, have a gift for helping people know that. And you're both so gracious and so insightful. So I just want to say how much joy it's brought me to share this conversation with you both. And thank you for starting the year off on such a wonderful note.
Yes, thank you.
Welcome. And thank you. Dr. Energy, can you share with us your BU final moment?
It's simply this: just as Rebecca said, be yourself. Nobody else can be you. And no matter what you're doing, how you're delivering it to the world, have some fun with it. Bring the joy, bring the authenticity, and much like Mother Rebecca would possibly say, you know, don't let the facts get in the way of a good story.
Exactly.
And how about yourself, Rara?
Thank you. My BU final moment is bring those that are no longer with us right here in front of us so that their legacy lives on.
Oh my gosh, that's beautiful. Thank you for that.
So on this note, Dr. Energy, Rebecca, I want to thank you for being here with us, and we look forward to all the things that are coming to all of us for 2020.
Yes.
Thank you so much for having me on. It's been such an honor and a delight.
Thank you for joining us. Sharing is caring. Tell your friends about conversations worth having on BU Network. We really appreciate your reviews, and you can do that on Apple Podcast. Thank you.
For show notes and links, go to www.b-u.network/podcasts. Connect with us via our website, www.b-u.network.
We're looking forward to hearing from you, and thank you for being with us. Ciao.
Ciao, babies.